Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time again. It's the start of a new Monday Championship, and it is the return of the Porsche Cup. Season 3 of the Porsche Cup here at RCI, on RCI TV, on Monday nights for the next 6 Mondays. It is great to be back, and we're here at the Nurburgring for the very first round of the season as well. 2 weeks of pre-qualifying, some invitational drivers from last season as well. And we have a stacked grid here for the start of a new season of Monday Night Racing. My name is Ryan Gill. I am your lead host for this season. We've got Jake Boswell behind the cameras as per usual, and special guest for the very first round of the season. It is Ryan Mawson to crown out the Ryan and Ryan show for the start of the season. How are you doing, Mawson?
Yeah, good to be here on a moderately cool, I would say, Nurburgring day. What a way to kick off this season, though. You know, the Porsche Cups, these things, they always bring some fantastic racing here at RCI. These cars are probably one of the hardest cars to drive in ACC. They have no traction control. They do not really have much mechanical grip as to speak of. And the only aero you can ever speak of is that gigantic wing that someone plonked on the back of it. But the drivers that drive these are just a special breed. You know, we've seen some of the returning names, Wolf Matuszka, Sundstrom, Bart Matcher, all these names that, we know and love. And yeah, I had to come and watch them at Nürburgring, the German car on the German circuit, and let's see what some of these absolutely rapid drivers can do with it.
Yeah, of course, starting out on home turf, I suppose, for Porsche, or the closest we can get to home turf for them in their native country here at the Nürburgring GP circuit. The rest of the season will take us into Italy for Imola, then we'll go to Belgium to visit Spa. We will go to Brands Hatch for the first time since the British GT Championship on a Monday night. We'll also visit Hungaroring and end out the season at Barcelona as well. The season ending on December the 13th as well, and then we will go into a little bit of a hibernation period until next year, where the Monday Championship will restart. We'll have no information at the end of this season on what the next Monday Championship is. We're going to keep that just a little under covers for now until next year, but plenty of information about some of the things we're doing next year in RCI already, which includes the World Tour Season 2, which has got a 24 hours of Spa confirmed already, and a fantastic calendar lined up as well. But we'll focus our efforts back on what's going on here tonight, and as we're about a minute and a half away from the end of practice for the first round of the season, it is Wolf Matuszka ahead with a 1:56.9, the only man in the 1:56s here at the Nürburgring in practice. But, as we always say, Ryan, it's practice. Doesn't mean everything.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people will, it's part of the strategy sometimes. You don't necessarily want to show, your ultimate pace. I know a lot of drivers as well will actually sit and practice the Porsche, and more particularly the Porsche Cup and the GT3 car, on a heavier fuel load. It's a little bit easier to get to grips with in the opening rounds, to have a bit of weight over the front end of that car, as that's the other sort of defining factor of a Porsche. The engine is what most people would call in the wrong place, and the Cup cars, the GT3 car, is it's slightly more mid-engined. It's kind of a mid-rear setup, as they would say. These Cup cars are very much like the road car. That engine is way out the back, like an absolute pendulum. So if you get it slightly wrong, you know about it. So I would definitely say that some of these times are going to come down, and looking as well at the track conditions. We didn't really mention it. I mentioned it maybe a little bit at the start. It was a green track to start, quite a dusty and perhaps wet. We had a little bit of a sprinkling, the while before practice. But now we've got up to a fast track. Do we think we could get an optimum at the end of quali? It's hard to say, really.
I think it's definitely possible, but something that the drivers will be looking out for as practice reaches the 0 hours mark is that, like you said, that there was rain in the air before practice started. We had a very fresh track where a lot of the rubber had been washed away, so the drivers have had to build up the grip. But you can see you know, through some of the cameras and through some of the onboards, there are plenty of clouds left in the sky, and rain is definitely possible here tonight. And it's leaning on the side of dry and more likely cloudy than it will be rain. But there is definitely a sprinkle of rain in the air tonight, and it could come to bite the drivers back. 60-minute race here tonight. 1 mandatory pit stop. All the drivers need to do is take 1 litre of fuel. They have a 57-minute pit window to do that pit stop. And, well, Ryan Mawson, let's be honest. You know, if it's your first time out here in a Porsche Cup car, like it is for quite a few of the drivers in the Silver and AM categories that we've also got going on at the same time, the last thing you want is for it to rain at round 1.
Yes, and that will be, you know, survival is the biggest concern for a lot of these drivers, and always is playing on in the back of your mind when driving these cars. But the Arden Forest, she is a cruel mistress. We've seen what the weather can do here historically in many racing, not only at RCI but in the real life racing as well. You know, we can go from quite a lovely summer's day to, you know, torrential storms, and it's been a red flag. Hopefully, though, for the drivers, we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we'll tap on the Woods commentary table here that we stay some dry, and we'll see what the Porsche Cup can actually do when it's got a bit of grip under its wheels.
Well, we are into qualifying. We have switched over. It is Saturday morning now here at the Nurburgring, 10 o'clock in the morning. That will be the same time on the Sunday that the race starts, so it is early in the morning that we're getting underway here. And of course, it is pretty chilly out there. 17 degrees ambient, 19 on track. The grip level is up to fast now, and the clouds have dispersed. So here we go then, Ryan Mawson. We are going to have a dry qualifying session at the very least, and all the drivers now working their way out onto the track. And 10 minutes is not a lot of time, especially around here in the Nürburgring, where we saw Wolf Matuszka on the lower end of the lap times here with a 156.9. I mean, if we're looking at those times roughly as you know, the peak of qualifying, you're going to spend a good 2 minutes and more, you know, just doing an outlap around here. So you kind of have to fuel up for the whole session.
Yeah, you can't really, with the quick fire qualifying, afford to throw away any kind of laps. An outlap as well, not only will it just waste the time of actually completing said outlap, but the tyres, you had to get these up to pressures, you need to get them up to temperatures. The Porsche Cup needs any kind of the assistance that it's got, so a Porsche Cup on grained tyres or cold tyres is, you know, is very, very, very tricky to drive. And it will be that little bit harder. We're early in the mornings, and we dropped all the way down to 19 on the track temp. So it's definitely going to take at least 1, maybe 2 or 3 laps, depending on the how aggressive these drivers have got their qualifying setups to even get heat in the tyres. But for the first time under the timing line, it will be Nico Kumpu in the number 6 for the Hank Moody Racing Team, taking us away down the Nürburgring straight.
Yep, so we'll jump on board with the Flying Finn as well, down towards turn 1, the Haug Harken corner, as we tiptoe through. Just need to get through as cautiously as you can, dipping down into first gear. Going to be one of the more notorious gears in this Porsche Cup car to use. Into the Mercedes arena we go. Need to keep the car nice and wide, get a good entry into here, ride the curb as much as you can, and then switch the car back quickly as you make your way onto the first of multiple back straights we have here at the Nürburgring, making his way down towards the Valvoline curve now. I'm going to look for the marker on that right-hand side. That's where you're going to brake, tuck it up towards the inside, then take a wide entry into this corner, get the power down nice and early, use as much of the exit curb as you can. Just don't touch the gravel or the grass. Then making their way down towards the Dunlop curve. This is the long, long hairpin, and you have to get this corner right because this sets you up for a very fast sequence of corners just up ahead. So get a nice exit here, wide on the power, and then up towards the famous Michael Schumacher S's here. Ride the curbs, just try and knock back off the throttle for as much as you can. Carry the speed up towards the Michelin curve here. Look for the braking marker board. You're looking for about the 100-meter board. Then get the car tipped in, go wide. Don't go too wide on that corner, though you will invalidate your lap. And then get the car turned in nice and early on the power as well, over the curb. Don't touch the gravel, you'll lose a lot of momentum and invalidate your lap. And then through the flat section of the Ad Van Bergen we go, onto the splitter cam to look towards the final chicane here. Brake nice and late here. Ride as much of the curbs as you dare, being very, very cautious by Nico Kumpu. Just wants to get this banker lap in nice and early. Hug the wall on the inside line as you hit the apex. Take it nice and wide, and up towards the line we go. Nico Kumpu, the first lap of the season in qualifying. It's a 1:57.7. It's immediately beaten by the 29 Porsche with a 57.6 as well. But I would say, Ryan Mawson, into the 57, mid 57s is probably not a bad time to start out with around here, as we see Wolf Matuszka now coming up towards the line, and he will cross the line, but he'll be 1.3 seconds off the pace to start.
Yeah, the 57s, you really can't complain at that for, especially an out lap. Definitely got some time to be had in that, but you can see from the onboard camera how many points at this circuit that is so terrifying to drive this car. A lot of weight changes, you've got to balance it. There's so much time to be had in some of these corners, like this last chicane that we were looking at, for example. If a driver is absolutely determined and fully committed to that car, you can gain so much time through this chicane. We've seen people launching the car over the curbs, but the risk versus reward of that. It won't surprise me though if towards maybe some of the last do or die laps we might see that. We look at the time, we're already down to just over 4 minutes, and Martin Lawrence for the Connection Loss Racing, there you go, 1:57.4 right out the bat.
So just about half a second off of what Wolf Matuszka did in practice is around about where the top of the timing sheets is right now. If we look all the way down the leaderboard, you have to go down to 18th place to get outside of 1 second away from the provisional pole time. So it is pretty tight up here at the moment. And you were talking about, the drivers having to be so committed through a lot of these corners. And, if you have that bravery and that confidence in the car, you can gain so much time. I mean, it probably goes without saying, Ryan, that a lot of the drivers would have that confidence in a GT3 car, but maybe don't have that confidence in a Porsche Cup car because it doesn't have the same amount of downforce in the corners, but especially because on power you have to worry about that lack of traction control. It's not going to save you if you get the power down wrong and a bit too early.
No, and the Porsche Cup car as well has the other sort of slight quirk about it, where you have to actually judge your braking distances slightly different than a GT3. Not necessarily that the brakes are much worse, they are still big, hefty carbon ceramics, I think, on this car, I believe. But the speed that these cars carry, they have actually more power than some of the GT3 cars run, with less aero. So in a straight line, these are absolute rocket ships. When I remember when we had the Porsche Masters, where it was a multi-class between the GT3s and the Cups, it was really, really interesting watching the Cups reel in the GT3s all the way down the straight. So it's, there's so many things to think about in a Cup car. Is where is the front downforce? How fast are you going? What are the brakes going to do? How early dare I press this throttle? And, well, coming up to 3 minutes left, I think a lot of people might be wanting to press that throttle a little bit more and get themselves up the timing boards.
Wolf Matuszka has gone top of the timing tables, by the way, if anyone hadn't noticed that earlier. 1:56.8, so he's beaten the time he had set in practice. So Wolf Matuszka has more left in the tank, it would seem. And we'll have to see what the number 25 can do in the remaining 2.5 minutes of this session. You can see the Pink Performance car. Lovely livery on that car, by the way. We usually get onto liveries at some point throughout every stream that we do here at RCI, but the Pink Performance liveries, Ryan, I mean, let's face it, you've probably seen this car, or at least some version of this livery, on an Audi somewhere over the past 15, 18 months that anyone's been around ACC, because, the likes of Phil Vitt and Wolf Matuszka, they carry this livery pretty hard, and they carry the Pink Performance name pretty hard, and used to go by Muka Motorsport, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I mean, iconic is the word I think of, and every single time you will see that Audi in the rearview mirror, you generally want to shuffle out of the way, and there was a little bit left in the tank for Wolf Matuszka. That was an improvement up to a 1:56.811. Just shaving off that tiny little bit now. Really is trying to push that Porsche Cup, I think, as hard as the chassis will even allow.
So Wolf Matushka clearly does have something left in the tank. We'll have to see if he's got any more left in it, but someone who has got a lot of time on their side at the moment is Martin Lawrence. And we see Mohamed Malik cross the line. They're up into third, but Martin Lawrence is up by about 0.6 of a second, looking more like 0.7 of a second now as he comes through the final chicane, goes wide, clips the grass slightly, loses a bit of time. That might cost him. I don't think he's going to get provisional pole. He's going to power it out of the final corner, come up towards the timing line, losing a bit more time as he clips the grass as well, and he's just over 1/10 short of provisional pole. If he hadn't just clipped the grass on the exit of the chicane and on the exit of the final corner, that probably would have been provisional pole for Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, to be 1/10 off with those wild few last corners, he says it really was looking like a provisional pole lap. But he still does have one lap left. And Mikael Sundstrom as well. He's got one more lap left, probably. Looking like he isn't improving at this very lap unless he's got it in the last corner. Blasting it up to the line in the 899. He will just squeak in another lap. And that one was not an improvement, but he's got one more shot at that goal.
Yep, qualifying coming to an end. It's 3, 2, 1, and go. So the checkered flag is out, and it will be the 404 that crosses the line at first in the end of qualifying. That is Bart Matcher, who will go no further up the order than 9th to start the season. We see Klaus Nearing here. He's in 11th place at the moment. Crosses the line. Will stay 11th highest at this point in time. I'm watching Martin Lawrence at the moment. And on my timing screens, he's not going any faster. In fact, he's 1/10.5 down. Mikael Sundstrom is on his lap time, by the way. Paulo Lima will cross the line and will stay 15th. So no improvement for them. Miska Suominen, who's one of the invitational drivers we have this season. They got promoted from the silver class last season in the Lamborghini Super Cup, is now down in 28th place at the moment, but they're up on their lap time, I think. Are they going to come across the line? No, they're not going to improve, actually, and they're going to stay down towards the bottom of the pack. Here is Martin Lawrence. He's not up on his lap time. He's 1/4 of a second down, comes into the final corner. Oh, power sliding through the car, and that's not going to do him any good. Won't improve on his lap time, and that's Martin Lawrence done. The best he will be is second on the grid. Mikael Sundstrom and Nico Kumpu are still improving on their lap times. They are the only two drivers out there on valid laps at this point in time. Mikael Sundstrom's up by about 1/4 of a second. Nico Kumpu around the same margin as well. So we can see Mikael Sundstrom coming in towards the chicane now. Riding the inside of both of those, inside and exit of the chicane, not losing any time, but not gaining any time either. Coming into the final corner now, Mikael Sundstrom gets the power down, does seem to gain on entry, but then loses it on the exit, comes up towards the timing line, but he'll go 5th as a highest to end the qualifying session. Nico Kumpu has lost most of his time as well. He will go 7th, and that is your order for the first race of the season. It is Wolf Matushka who will take pole with Martin Lawrence alongside him for the first race of the season. And you have to feel, Ryan Mawson, that Martin Lawrence will be a bit frustrated that that lap in which he went slightly wide in the last sector twice has probably cost him a first pole position of the season.
Yeah, it's one of those. I did think that the do or die laps would come out towards the end of qualifying. You could see how hard they were pushing the cars. As I said, a lot of time to be had in those last few corners. But with the Porsche Cup being so hard to control, especially when you throw it over curbs, you unload the suspension. If it wants to shuffle out in a direction, it will do so. And we mentioned the getting on the power early. That is a low gear corner, a low speed corner. There's nothing really to help you. And we saw quite a few drivers, in fact, that I clocked, managing to slide it around the final hairpin. But as well, you've got to think all these drivers are going to be sort of on their A game. You've got to go all the way down to almost 16th, all the way down to the Sam Smeets car, the 448, who just about pips out of the second margin. You know, that is a lot of cars running a very, very similar lap time.
It is, and well, with the pre-qualifying that we had before the start of the season, we had a 2-week pre-qualifying window with a very brand new pre-qualifying format here at RCI, and a lot of the drivers have been enjoying that. And we had some pretty impressive lap times coming out, and we had some drivers that really did put in a phenomenal amount of work. I believe it was one driver in particular, I think in the silver class, I can't quite remember who it was, put in a grand total of 400 plus laps in pre-qualifying, Ryan. And I mean, 400 laps in this car around, well, across 2 tracks, which were Monza and Misano. I mean, that is a lot of practice in this car. And, that can only help you going into, the rest of the season. If it's your first time out in this car, you want to get as many laps in the car as you can to prepare yourself for that race 1.
Yeah, and that will really, really help that driver. The other thing that you've got to remember with these cars as well, and this is why you can't really count anyone out of the, I'd say, top, 5, 6, 7 possibly to take a win. Speed in this car is one thing, but consistency is so hard to nail down with the Porsche Cup. There are so many little variables. There's no traction control to help you. The handling is, quite different to what a lot of these drivers will daily drive their GT3 cars. And even if you drive the Porsche GT3, it has a similar handling characteristic of rear end, but the downforce, the way it delivers the power, the grip levels, it all changes. And it really wouldn't surprise me if you see some of the drivers who are, a couple of attempts off on the lap times, but they can nail that every single time. They will start to come through the pack and they will make their way up to the front.
Yeah, and we're getting some lovely drone shots here of the grid as Jake Boswell, our cameraman, makes his way from the back to the front. Some very nice liveries out here today as well. It's always great to see the creativity. There's not too much selection available for the Porsche Cup car, unfortunately, but there is still plenty of creativity out there in the field. And one livery that I do like particularly, we'll probably see it in just a moment here, is the kind of all-black car that Nico Kumpu is running. He's in 7th place. I think we're just about to see him come into frame here on the left-hand side of the screen, but running a lovely matte black and some glossy black as well. Just little lines on that car that you can see, and I think that car looks absolutely fantastic. But just under 2 minutes away from the formation lap, and the first race of the season is not long away as well. So it's about that time, Ryan Mawson, that we play everyone's favourite game before the race. It's time to put your money down. Who are you going for the first win of the season?
Oh, it's one of those, isn't it? You have to slightly hold your tongue as to not commentators curse people. But I do think that Wolf Matuszka, having watched this driver numerous times, and this driver also, Wolf drives the Audi predominantly, which is not an easy car when you want to start pushing it harder and harder and harder. I think really that he might be one of the drivers who really excels in the Porsche Cup. I've only ever seen I think I've seen Mikael Sundstrom battle it out with Mike Noble before in Cup cars, but other than that, I haven't seen Lorenk or Matuszka drive a Cup car. So I'm gonna go with the pink performance. That's where I'm gonna put my money, on the basis that he drives quite a scary car to begin with. So I think he might do well in these.
Well, Wolf Matuszka is Ryan Mawson's pick of the day. I think I'm going to go for a man that I spoke about quite a bit in the pre-show off air, and I'm going to say Andy Boardman could potentially ruffle some feathers here today. He's always had it. He's always come close to doing well in a championship before, but he's never quite managed to grab a season, grab the bull by the horns, as they would say, and really make it his own. And I'm kind of hoping that he could do that here in the last Monday championship of the year. And, well, as Wolf Matuszka leads them away for the formation lap, let us know at home who you think is going to win the race here today. We always love knowing what the folks at home are thinking, and thank you very much for joining us this evening for the start of the final Monday championship of the year. And of course, do check out some of our partners as well. Race Department, if you're looking for any news or mods in sim racing, Race Department is definitely the place to go. If you want to buy some gaming hardware on a sheep, or you want to hire, host some ACC servers, but perhaps you can look at AK Informatica. Driver 61 can get you coaching to the level of these pro drivers. Their Sim Racing Academy costs $10 for access, and you can get 25% off by using the discount code in our description. Fanatec, if you want to use our affiliate link to support us at no extra cost and get some of the best equipment sim racing has to offer, you can look at Fanatec through our affiliate link. And of course, Sim Racing GP, if you want to get started and host some races for your friends, or if you want to, maybe think about starting up your own community in the future, Sim Racing GP is the perfect platform for you to do so on a budget. So go check them out. Well, Ryan Mawson, formation lap underway. We've both got our bets in for the first race of the season. The tension is starting to rise, and with 28 cars on the grid, I think one of the big questions around here at the Nurburgring is going to be how clean is it going to be down towards that first corner and the first sector as a whole, because it's pretty tight down towards turn 1, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for the actual, it's the pole setter has more of the work cut out. It's such quite a sharp right-hand turn, and you've got to be careful, because if someone can get the grip and someone has the has the enthusiasm to go all the way around the outside, they will then have the inside for the Mercedes arena. You can't discount that. But yeah, a lot of drivers that are maybe first season in a Porsche Cup, or just returning after a long break, you've got to remember that these things accelerate a lot faster than your GT3s. You've got to remember that slipstream braking points will change and everything. With Wolf Matushka still trying to get some heat in the tires as well. We have there's Victor Nordqvist as the 19, who is still in the pit lane. They have not made the grid. So that car will be allowed to start. They will just be from the pit lane if they can get that car going again.
Well, that's a shame for Victor Nordqvist, who actually didn't have too bad of a qualifying, if I remember correctly, looking at the timing. 17th place it was for Victor Nordqvist, so wasn't too bad. Was in the back end of the field for sure, but right in and amongst the mid-pack. So there's an empty spot on the grid where their car would have stood, and they'll have to see what they can recover from the pit lane. One mandatory pit stop for everyone here tonight. That's what the amber icon is next to the race drivers' names. And of course that has a little 1 in it to say that they still have 1 stop to serve. That will go green once they have served it. They have 57-minute pit window to serve it, so 1 minute 30 at the start that they are not allowed to serve it in, and 1 minute 30 at the end. But here we go then, 2x2. As far back as you can see, we're green for the season, and wow, there is 4 drive-through penalties for cars being out of position at the start of the race. That's going to mix things up, interestingly, but down towards turn 1 we go here. Wolf Matushka does have the inside line, takes the lead as he should, and Martin Lawrence is under pressure already from the 69 of Andy Boardman. Lawrence was going to be on the outside of turn 1, he's on the inside of turn 2. Looks like he will regain the position from Andy Boardman unless he can hang it around the outside. Nope, decides better of it. And there has been some cautions back in the mid-pack of the field, and there's 2 cars that have got around Ryan Mawson.
What a start, Andy Boardman. It did look like for a while, though, that he might have had the better grip on the outside. He tried to go around the outside of Martin Lawrence, but it just was not to be, not in these early stages. But as you says, that 69 looking incredibly racy, even in these opening statements. But yeah, for the 4 drive-throughs, Nürburgring is notorious for it. The front straight is so wide that you can very easily find yourself shuffled over, and the game will penalise you for that. You will get a drive-through for being out of position at the start. So that's nothing that we have done. That is what the drivers have done to themselves.
Yeah, that's very, very unfortunate for the drivers as well, that they'll have to deal with that over the course of the race. The drivers in question were Lindgren, Kalatayud, Kuizma and Van Kampen, by the way. So that is the 49, the 30, the 991 and the 35. The pit window is open, by the way, It has just opened as 1 minute 30 has already passed in the race. They haven't, of course, come back around to the start-finish line yet, but it is Wolf Matuszka that leads the way, and he's got almost a 1 second gap. In fact, it is now a 1 second gap between himself and Martin Lawrence. So Martin Lawrence, when he had to do that defending against the likes of Andy Boardman, that has not helped him at all, but it has helped the pole sitter now, who has a comfortable lead to start the race at the end of the first flying lap.
Now, and if we look second, third, fourth and fifth, they are all in a train. As looking through, there's some of the cars that are coming through, I think it is to serve their drive-through penalties. But interestingly, there are a lot more cars than is the penalty. That is the 15 already pitting. And I was going to theorize this. I did think the Porsche Cup also has great, coming into 3 wide into turn 1. That might not work. Paulo Lima gets a small touch there from I think that is the 81. No, it's the 29 actually. Small touch, nothing of it as of yet. But I did think the Porsche Cup has one advantage as well over a GT3. It has good fuel economy. I was wondering how many drivers might pit and try go a full distance, get out of this, the fracard. And speaking of, there's a car off in the background.
That's Jordan Daly. That was Jordan Daly's car, the 197, the very recognisable pink and blue car that you can see with the black base. Lovely livery on that car, but Jordan Daly, just tapped on the back. And that has sent him going. And who was that? Was that John Eraser, perhaps? In the 699. I'm not entirely sure it was, actually, now looking a bit further back at it. It might have been Yosef Varga, actually, or Christian Terres. We'll have to see which one it is later on. The stewards will definitely be looking at that. We have live stewarding here today, as we hadn't mentioned that here before. So a good team of about 8 stewards, I believe we have tonight, looking through incidents to make sure that drivers are penalised if and when necessary. So they'll be looking at all the accidents that happened on the first lap and the second lap as well. And we'll keep you up to date with any decisions they make throughout the race as we get a little bit of a replay of the start here. This is Andreas Karlsson trying to go around the outside of everyone, gets a bit caught up in a little bit of body scraping. Ooh, one of the cars just getting tucked on the back of the quarter panel of the car there, and almost losing it, but recovering it pretty well.
Yeah, I think the last time I measured Nurburgring, it is rarely 4 Porsche Cup wide. It's not going to stop any driver trying it. We can advise them that maybe sometimes it doesn't work, but these are racing drivers. You give them a gap, they will go for it. But for the 25, so far, looking like they're going for great guns. Another race replay from the start. This is the 1-2-1 of Z-Man. It's everyone according up, and that's Bart Matcher backwards.
It is. I did see someone go around in the first sector. I didn't know it was Bart Matcher. He's actually come in to do a pit stop, by the way, as well. So he's taken advantage of the fact that he was spun around early to then serve the pit stop on the first lap. And that's not actually a bad idea, is it, Ryan? Because on the first lap, not everyone is going at their full race pace yet. So you can kind of save a bit of time whilst everyone is still, getting up to temperature, getting up to pace by pitting early. And then, of course, when they come around later in the race to pit and you're going at flying speed, you should be able to gain a bit of that time back.
Yeah, and it also gets you out of the, all of the early race battles. So things like we're seeing on the screen, where all of the defending that these drivers have to do, it's going to slow all of them down. A good strategy, if you can make the tyres last, that is the big caveat with that strategy, is obviously if you cook the tyres on this Porsche Cup, which is easy to do, if you cook them, then that strategy is out of the window because you will just start losing lap times. But if you're a confident driver that you can nurse the tyres and you can deal with a heavier fuel load and you can still do your good clean laps, lap after lap, pitting early, I think, if you're anything back from 5th, is quite the strategy.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that plays out. No mandatory tyre swap for these drivers. It's completely optional for them if they want to go for it. It's completely down to them. All they need to do is make sure they do a quick splash and dash to meet the requirements. And we'll have to see how all of that pans out later on. And like you said, tyres will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. It's not that hot out there today. Of course, it's early in the morning, 17 degrees ambient, 19 degrees track. So it's nice and cool out there. So the tyres probably won't be encountering any overheating problems at any stage, but probably one of the bigger concerns might actually be getting heat into the tyres because of how cold it is out there today. The German winters around this time, Ryan Mawson, they do get pretty chilly, but it is probably on the warmer side today.
And being a clockwise circuit, obviously that front right-hand tyre, there's not many corners where you do actually, you know, give it some load. So that front right, it will keep cooling off. And I think over a long stint, you might see a little bit of graining on that. So the few times you do need it, I mean, you know, one that strikes immediately to mind that you want grip on that side. Schumacher S's that we're just coming up to now. See, there's a couple of cars washing wide, and even the 899 in the background, you can see these tyres still have not got up to full operating. They're a bit wishy-washy still.
Yeah, Mikhail Sundstrom in the 899 chasing down Mahmoud Malik at this stage in the race. The number 8, who had qualified on 4th place, has stayed exactly where he has. The top 4 have stayed in the same order that they qualified in. In fact, that stretches back to the top 5, actually, for Nico Kumpu having gained a place at the start. So a few drivers having stayed in the same position, but most of the drivers have changed position from the start of the race. And one of the big winners in the early phase of the race is Matthew Kingston Lee, qualified all the way down in 27th, and he's up to 18th at this point in time. So he's taken advantage of the 4 drivers in front of him that got a drive-through penalty. He's taken advantage of Victor Nordquist, who had to start from the pit lane, and it looks like he's also taken advantage of avoiding some of the chaos that happened on lap 1. And it is so important, isn't it, Ryan Mawson? We talk about it, you know, quite often around here, is that your ability to stay out of trouble in the first few laps can make a big difference to your race come the end.
And that is hugely amplified when you decide to go race the Porsche Cup. You know, survival and just, you know, consistency in driving the car clean is so much more important in these, because it is so easy to make that small mistake. You've just got to, no matter what is filling your mirror, you know, if the driver behind you is really hassling you, you've got to not look, keep your head down, keep you cool, and just drive your race that you know. And the 699 going up to the inside of the 29, these two have been at it now for quite a while. It looks like I don't think this battle is going to cool off anytime soon.
This is John Aracer and Van Merveld in the 29 and John Aracer in the 699, so some close racing between these two as well. A few guys starting to spread out a bit, and a few drivers finding themselves in a bit of a bubble earlier on here, Ryan Mawson, but it could be that some of the drivers, you know, maybe saving their tyres for the second half of the race. Some drivers may be going gun-ho because they know they're going to change tyres when they do their mandatory pit stop, but it is a 30-second time loss to change tyres. And I mean, you do a lot more racing than I do, especially up towards the you know, the upper echelons of you know, the skill levels. I mean, around here today, you know, with the temperatures that we have in mind, you know, with the race length that we have in mind, I mean, would you be, how much would you be considering tyres at this stage?
Well, you flatter me with that statement, Ryan, but I would probably, if I was looking at the temps, looking at, obviously it's setup dependent, you can run the suspension a little bit more aggressive, as it were, and that would heat up the tyres more. But if I knew I had a setup that is not going to chew the tyres immediately, I wouldn't be swapping tyres in an hour race when you've got these nice cool ambience. If you had an hour race, say, you know, Imola, we go to Italy, it's notoriously a bit hot there, I might consider it, but it depends. And that is the 49. That is the 19. That's Victor Nordquist. Tries to go up the inside of turn 1. But like I said earlier, if the person can hang it around the outside, they have the inside again for the Mercedes Arena. So although that was a spectacular move up the inside, it did not pull off, but it's 3 wide.
Oh! And contact! The 221, that was Josep Varga, and Nordquist got around as well!
And that was the 19, I think a little bit too early on the power, just trying to recover the car once everyone had sort of sorted themselves out. So here we come again, coming out of the Mercedes Arena. It looks like the 221 has made a mistake. When the 899 turns in, the 221 is still there, and the 19 just trying to avoid everybody. That is what happens as soon as you give this Porsche just that little bit too much steering input.
Do you think that's obviously a consequence of trying to avoid the incident ahead, just kind of lost control of the car, maybe just had a bit of a blank moment and put the power down a bit too aggressively?
It does look like it. I mean, a lot of times in a GT3 car, to get yourself out of situations like that, you will, if the if the road ahead of you is clear, just give it a bootful. You want to get away from that situation. But Porsche Cup, you still always have to have it in your mind that, throttle modulation is key. And this is the 34. This is Ethan Scott dipping into the pits already. They have done around about a 10-minute, 12-minute stint of this race and has decided that they have had enough. They are going to come in for their mandatory stop.
Yeah, the one thing about pitting early on, actually, in these races that you kind of have to be a bit careful of is change of weather. I mean, we talked about it earlier on, but you don't want to be the guy that goes in and thinks, you're being very clever with, trying to undercut the field. You come in early to get out of the traffic, you get your mandatory pit stop out of the way, and then you realize it's going to rain and you have to do an additional stop to everyone else. And it is that gamble, isn't it? Stopping early can be really, really beneficial, but if the weather changes, that can obviously throw your entire plan out the window, and it can also make you look a bit like a fool. We have a 30-minute advanced weather report here at the moment, though, and it's just all looking cloudy at the moment, so I don't think the drivers will be worrying about that too much at this point in time. And, well, for all the drivers that have pitted early, they will be hoping that it does stay dry for the remainder of this race.
And the other thing that you do have to, bear in mind as well, it's not a thing that a lot of drivers may think about, but if you're going to pit early, ideally, the earlier the better, and this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but what you don't want, if you are doing the one pit stop and full, you don't want to heat cycle the tyres. If you get these tyres fully up to operating temperature, and then you go into the pits, you're adding fuel, they cool down again. They will start to lose grip, and that will affect your lap times. Only slightly, but with a field this close, any slight, you're losing 2 to 3 tenths a second a lap, you might come into the jaws of doom. And speaking of jaws of doom, this is the 699 going up side by side again with the 121. The 699 is completely sideways through the chicane, manages to hold on to it, and they once again fall back in line.
We saw Paulo Lima in the 18 not long ago just go off the track, not long after the Schumacher S's. And we can see Gegely Gaspar at this point in time coming up on Meerveld, and it's going to try and look on the outside line down into turn 1, and inside line very well covered off by the number 29, and no chance for the 81. We'll look onto the inside of turn 2, but too far back to sneak a nose up inside.
Now, and the 29 now they're in a bit of a scary place. It looks like that car has the pace to overtake the 699, but any move that they do make on them, they are now under fire from behind as well. So as a driver, it's probably one of the most stressful places you could be. What do you do in that situation? You have to really start to think about your strategy.
There's Nico Kuizma and Ethan Scott. We saw Scott pit just a moment ago. And Nico Kuizma, who was one of the drivers who got a drive-through penalty for being out of position at the start of the race. One of 4 drivers, in fact, that got those drive-through penalties, and it's unfortunately just having to recover whatever they can from this race. And this is one of the very frustrating things, isn't it, Ryan Mawson, when you're in Ethan Scott's situation. You've pitted to get out of traffic, to give yourself some clean air, and you've got your pit stop out of the way, and you just come up to someone who hasn't done their pit stop, but they've got no obligation to move out of your way, and if you're stuck behind them, it kind of just null and voids the entire strategy that you've laid out ahead of you.
Yeah, this is always the danger that you play with the strategy, and we saw Ethan Scott was probably one of the later pitters for this idea, and that is another problem that you have. Traffic will start to build up again. What I'm gonna I'll keep my eye on that though, because so far he is the leader of the cars that have pitted. So that is definitely one to keep an eye on if you can get past and get the lap times back up again.
Oh, but here comes the number 23. This is Klaus Neering on Miska Suominen. Miska Suominen qualified at the back of the grid. They're up to 14th at this point in time, doing a very good job. But they're going to be demoted to 15th by Klaus Neering into the inside. And the number 23 goes through, but he's put the power down too early, and he's half spun into the barrier. And that is kind of just a perfect example of what you were explaining earlier, Ryan, when you just get the power down a bit too early, when you get that moment in your mind where it just blanks out for a moment that you're not driving a GT3 car, and it all goes wrong, as Ethan Scott does manage to find a way through on Nico Kuzma.
Turn 1 has got that sort of slightly off-camber bit as well, so it makes it even that harder. The 34, Ethan Scott, has managed to get through. It was a really late break into turn 1. I didn't think that he was going to manage to get the car stopped, but did manage to hold onto it and had the inside for the Mercedes arena. Now that the move is done and dusted, he really needs to get his foot down and make that strategy work again.
Definitely does. Wolf Matuszka, by the way, you haven't seen much of him because he's been leading out at the front. He's got about a 5-second lead now on Martin Lawrence, so all of it is going well for Wolf Matuszka. In fact, it's 5.4 seconds to be exact, and all looking good for the German on home turf at this point in time. Andy Boardman just up the road from these two here, Mehmet Malik and Mikhail Sundstrom, so you can see Boardman just there in your frame, and he's sitting in the final podium position at this point in time. Sundstrom has been hunting down Malik for, you know, since the start of the race pretty much, but he hasn't really been able to make much more headway than this. He was closer earlier on when Malik had made a slight mistake whilst trying to catch up to Boardman, but that gap seems to have just come out a bit now, and it's sitting at around half a second for most of the race so far. By the way, we do have an answer to one of the early incidents in the race. The 899 collided with the 197, so that was Jordan Daly's car, and that is going to be a drive-through penalty for the 899. So it was Perez that actually collided with Jordan Daly on the second lap of the race. They didn't return the position, and the stewards have given them a drive-through penalty. And we didn't really see too much of the incident, did we, Ryan Mawson? But we definitely knew that Jordan Daly had been taken out by someone, and the stewards clearly believed that a drive-through is punishment enough.
We might not have caught all of it, as we get actually get a race replay now, so we will be able to see a little bit of what happened more. And there you go, the black Porsche tapping the back of the 197, and obviously position not returned. But that is the thing, we might not catch everything that happens, but the stewards with the eagle eyes, none of these drivers are safe from that. You must be on your best behavior, ladies and gentlemen. You must keep your P's and Q's in line, otherwise the mighty hammer shall smite you down, or the mighty pencil as it may be.
Yeah, we actually do have the stewards passing the reports, just kind of under the door to us. They're in the room just down below. We have someone just coming up, down, forth, just, poking those little steward reports through to us so that we can have a good read of them. And the steward's doing a fantastic job at the moment. Not too much has come through, actually, from the stewarding team so far. So we'll still awaiting to see what the result is of the incident on the first lap involving Bart Matcher. Did Bart Matcher get punted around? Did he spin on his own? It wasn't entirely obvious from the replay that we could see from the TV cameras. So it could be that there is no incident there to look at, but I'm sure the stewards will let us know if they see anything as they go through the report. Skegli Gaspar, by the way, closing in on Lubomir Zeman. Just about 0.3 of a second between these two as the Multi-21 racing car tries to defend from the 81 Porsche in behind, the green and black Porsche of Skegli Gaspar. And looking a bit further down the order at this moment in time, as Terrace has come in to serve their drive-through penalty. Matthew Kingston Lee up to 15th place, and Miska Suominen up to 13th place. Those were two drivers, Ryan, that started all the way at the back of the grid. They were on the last row. Yes, they haven't pitted, but I would say they've done a pretty good job so far, just getting out of trouble and making sure that they, just don't get themselves a penalty.
Yeah, stay out of trouble, manage to keep it on the black stuff, and just keep doing your lap times, and that will, it will slowly drag you up. Like I said, consistency is another big factor driving these Porsche Cups. So, anything, I wouldn't put it past any drivers, even at the back of the field, to manage to work their way all the way up. Paulo Lima now, he's pitted, and he's got a similar problem again as well. That's the 991 of Kuzma in front. Same thing, one driver has pitted, one has not, but he is being chased. The 29 of Van Merdeveld That is, that Porsche looks like they have been on a charge every time we've seen them on the track.
Yeah, and that's not good news, is it, for Paulo Lima, stuck behind a driver that has not pitted yet. It's Nico Koisma again, funny enough, the same driver that Ethan Scott was stuck behind, who you can see just up the road. And Paulo Lima, well, he's going to have to make his way past the 991. And, sometimes we do talk about this. You think, well, he hasn't done his pit stop. Surely he could just let them go and, they do their own race. But, I mean, you would know just as well as anyone, Ryan Mawson. When you're sat there in the car, it's not always that easy of a decision to make, is it? I mean, what you don't have to let them through because you are racing for position. Yes, you have a pit stop to do, but you could be thinking about the long game and think, well, if I keep him behind up until I have to do my pit stop, something could happen to him later on in the race because he lost all that time, and I could then end up in front of him towards the end of the race. And, some of these drivers are thinking that far ahead, as we see the number 29 trying to squeeze it up the inside line. He's going to have the inside line. Coming on to the final stretch now, Paulo Lima and Merveld will stretch their legs in the Porsche Cup cars. They're going to be side by side coming down to turn 1. The 29 has the inside line, is who is going to be later on the brakes. It looks like the 29. Have they got the move done? The 18 looks for a cutback option, but there is none available to them. And a very good job from Merveld there. Kept it pinned in the final corner to make sure they had a brilliant run onto the start-finish straight and got the move done cleanly. Bart Matcher now trying to make his way past Terres and just getting a bit out of shape out of turn.
Yeah, the 29, they got the run. There was very much only about another cut of paint, I would say, between those cars coming out of the last corner. Once again, I didn't think that the 29 was actually going to get that car stopped. They managed to do. And once again, they have the inside line for turn 1, but you need to get around the outside. And speaking of a man who's trying to go around the outside, 404, the Bart Matcher, thinking about around the outside, trying to get the inside line going down to the Dunlop curve, but it was not to be. I have met a few drivers who do think like that we mentioned earlier, where letting anyone by could be a strategy call for them later on in the race. It really depends on the driver. As you can see, the 404 now, they want to get by and done.
Bart Matcher's not happy stuck behind the 889.
No,
that's definitely obvious. And speaking of which, we did have another drive-through penalty come out. The 134 actually got a drive-through penalty for taking out the number 23 and not returning the position. So the 134 has had to come in and serve that drive-through penalty. That was Carlson, and we'll see a bit of the aftermath, I think, of this. Oh no, here we go. We are going to see the penalty for kind of just the 23 had an overlap, I suppose, there, Ryan Mawson, and Carlson kind of just made that overlap and that gap that existed disappear.
Yeah, pretty much. And like I said, at least the stewards are still being very much on it, because we didn't even really see what happened with that. And we're going to have a race replay again. It's almost deja vu, the 404 on the inside this time. Can they do what the 29 did the lap before? Bart Matcher's late on the brakes, actually misses turn 1, and that lets the 899 back through for the Mercedes arena. That is the problem with that move, is you can be later on the brakes, but it's getting the car stopped.
Well, I did talk about the fact that there could be a few racing incidents or no further action that we weren't aware of, and, Connor Morgan, a race controller for today, has just popped into the commentary box. He's dumped about 15 papers on my desk, and I'm looking through all of them, Ryan Mawson. They've got no further action and racing incident written all over them, except for one, which is lap 1, turn 3, involving the 81, 134, 404. The 81 takes out the 404 and the 134, no position returned, stop go 10. And that is this incident right here. The 81 goes into Carlson, who then inevitably goes into Bart Matcher. And that's what's happened at the start of the race. And, well, no position returned, stop go 10. It's probably the biggest penalty the stewards can award out here today, and they've clearly decided that on the first lap, where incidents are usually doubled in severity, that a stop go 10 is appropriate punishment.
And that does explain as well why the 404 on the pit delta that we've been keeping our eye on, what people might have been doing, looking for people who have taken tyres or not. A lot of them in the 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds, but the 404 with the longest stop, trying to find, they had a 1 minute 3, and that'll be from that damage that they picked up at the start. And it's probably the worst feeling, you've held the brakes, you can do nothing more as a driver. You've just got to hope that people coming around that blind corner can see you.
Well, Geggerly Gaspar in the 81 has cleared his stop-go penalty. There's always something I think about Ryan Mawson. Whenever you see someone get a drive-through or a stop-go penalty, I always feel if they come in and serve it immediately, it's almost a way of a driver being, owning up to the guilt and saying, okay, yeah, I'm responsible. Because what we usually see with drivers that disagree with a penalty is they will kind of stick it out for a few laps in the event that there could be a reconsideration on that penalty. Not that there usually ever is a reconsideration on penalties around here. So, I mean, from your perspective as a driver, I mean, if you get a penalty for an incident that, that you've caused, do you come in and serve it immediately, or does it not matter?
Generally, yes. The only time I might not is if I've managed to get one and I'm, in fresh air. I will try and limit the damage of the penalty by just putting in some sort of qualifying pace laps. Generally, what happens is I am a bit famous at certain tracks for getting the good old drive-through. Or Ricard being my favourite place, it seems, to get a drive-through. I don't think I've raced there once without getting one. So yeah, if I'm in no man's land, I will try and do some laps out just to minimise it. But if I've done it and anybody is in front of me, it's straight in, and that's the 49 backwards.
Oh dear, that's Christian Lindgren, one of the Swedish drivers we have out here today. The 49 coming in here. Is there going to be contact between them and the 35? We're going to see here going on the outside line. Getting close, getting close, getting close. And 35 on the outside line as they come down towards the corner. Just, bit of sideways contact, and that sends the 49 around. And that is unfortunate for Christian Lindgren, and the stewards have a bit more work to do. And as I was saying that, Chief Steward Tom Bryan actually just popped into my ear and he said the highest penalty they can actually now award is a stop-go 30. We never used to award stop-go 30s at all. The stop-go 10 was the highest we would go. But he has told me that rule has changed now. They can award stop-go 30s, but it has to be a borderline race restart incident. And obviously, the incident that Geggerly Gaspar caused in the 81 was not anywhere near borderline race restart, so obviously did not pick up a stop-go 30.
And that is not an award that you essentially you really want to have on your driver record. I'm pretty sure that's one that I don't think any driver ever here will want to have that award.
No, the stop-go penalties and drive-throughs are kind of the awards you don't want to be winning as a driver, personally. But we'll have to see how everything goes. We are about the halfway mark of the race here, just about to reach it. Wolf Matuszka has an 8.1 second lead so far in the race. We're looking at Miska Suominen at this point, who has the 23 drifting through the chicane as they take to the grass slightly. Here comes Carlson in the 134, and we'll get a little bit of a replay of this. The 23 trying to get up the inside of the 48, I think just spooking Suominen slightly, and both of them just seem to drift through the corner at the same time, Ryan.
Yeah, that was definitely a scary moment. Done incredibly well, though, to manage to avoid an accident. It was quite clear that the 48 still knew where the person was, even though that they were on the inside. The other thing I've noticed on this specific championship that we've got in this Porsche Cup, a lot of Finnish and Swedish around this time. I'm wondering if the snow driving might actually help them. This is an advantage, you see, of being Finnish.
Maybe it does. I mean, we have had quite a few of the more. I don't know whether it would be appropriate to call Finnish and Swedish one of the more obscure nationalities in sim racing, but they're definitely not nationalities we see that often around here. I mean, RCI, as much as we are an international community, primarily dominated by British, German, Italian drivers, and a lot of the main Central European countries primarily. But we have had drivers from, places like Japan and Malaysia coming out as of late, which has been really, really great to see. And of course, we've got a good Swedish contingent and Finnish contingent out here as well. And I've just seen Mohamed Malik come into the pit lane for the Project Reborn car, so he's going to go and pit, and that releases Mikael Sundström into some much-needed clean air. Klaus Nearing, by the way, has got a 15-second time penalty, and that is a 15-second time penalty for colliding with the 889 of... who is it? Actually, where is the 889? That is all the way down. Oh, that's Teres, actually, who's already served his drive-through penalty. So the 23 collides with the 889, no return of position. And you'll see that here on the replay. Ooh, yep, that's... I mean, around here, Ryan Mawson, we call that pretty slam dunk.
The Dunlop curve is one of those that kind of not necessarily invites those kind of accidents, but there's quite a few lines, although that corner might not look it. There is at least 2 common lines that I see drivers take. You either get people who V the corner off, as in they'll miss the apex, brake hard in a straight line, and then sharpen it off and power up to the Schumacher S's, or you'll get those drivers who go really tight to the apex and they follow it round. Problem is, if a driver who V's the corner and a driver who goes tight around the corner goes together, and the driver behind thinks they're letting them through, or that it's a potential gap, generally ends in accidents like that.
Just a correction, by the way, I did say that the position wasn't returned by the 23. It actually was. I just read that wrong on the penalty report. So correction there. Klaus Nearing did return the position, and as a result of that, what would have been a larger penalty was cut down. So saved themselves some time there. Paulo Lima on screen at the moment, and then we switch to Wolf Matuszka, the man who's been out in the lead. So we haven't seen too much of him here today. Just flashing back to him whenever we can. And doing very, very well here on home turf. I mean, it has to be said, Ryan, Wolf will be the favourite for the season. But, I mean, is this just home turf advantage, do you think, for Wolf Matuszka? Or do you think we're going to see performances like this all season long?
It would not surprise me if you see performances like this. I mean, one thing about Wolf as well is you can guarantee no matter where you put him in what car, he will practice that, he will master that, and he'll manage to find some way to gain mass amounts of time that you didn't even think were possible. The only time I've ever talked to Wolf about strategies and stuff was about Donington, and asking, we were both in the World Tour, both in Audis, and he was just driving away from us. I'm thinking, how can you even do that? We're in the same car, some very similar setups, and he's gave me a couple of tips. And when you sit back and think, I've never even thought about this, and that's kind of the difference between what it could be high pro driver and these invitational split absolute rapid people. I think we're going to have a bottle of water to chuck on the front of this car, because it'll be steaming, with the glowing red with how much pace this driver's got. A 9.8 seconds last timing round. Can he make it 10 on this lap? It wouldn't surprise me if he can.
And that's 9.8 seconds on Martin Lawrence, who let's not beat around the bush. He's not slow by any means. Martin Lawrence, one of the faster drivers in Eastern Europe for sure, and one of the fastest drivers we have around here as well in the RCI community. And that gap is going to be about 10 seconds as we get to the end of the lap. It was more than that when they hit the second sector end line, and there you go, it's 10.4 seconds as we reach the start-finish line. So with 24 and a half minutes to go, everything is looking good for Wolf Matuszka at the moment, but everything can change in an instant in this car, and Andy Boardman probably knows that just as well as anyone. He's done a couple of Porsche Cups with us now, and he's getting pretty familiar with this car on Mondays, and he's doing a pretty good job right now in third place and looking comfortable with a 3.1 second gap between himself and Mikael Sundström.
And so far as well, looking at the last lap times for each, Martin Lawrence, Andy Boardman has been chipping it away, just a tenth each time. it is possible that if Martin Lawrence starts to, lose any more pace, that the 69 might be able to catch up. He's already on the podium, but second the second step is always a little bit nicer than the third step, is it not?
Well, I mean, if you're going to challenge for a championship, you want to finish as high up as you can every single race. And if you're fully aware that Wolf Matuszka is going to be right up towards the front, and he's going to be one of your mainline contenders, you need to be maximizing your points week in, week out. I mean, Wolf Matuszka already has some points before the race is even over, because he managed to snag pole position, so he's got himself a couple of points for that. There's points for fastest lap as well, which, looking at the situation at this point in time, it's going towards Wolf Matuszka with a 156.7 in the race, and 156.7, Ryan Mawson, in race trim around here in a Porsche Cup car is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's not much slower than what we had in the qualifying, was it not? I think that was a 56.
It's actually quicker than what he did in qualifying.
Oh, is it? What did we do in qualifying?
We had a 156.811, so he's actually gone a tenth quicker almost in race trim than he has in qualifying.
Well, there you go. Once again, once the car's got a little bit of heat in the tyres and the fuel load, I think it really does help the handling of this car. So there you go. Not necessarily qualifying trim is always faster.
Oh, and here we go. It's not gone well for the 899. Lap 6, turn 5 incident involving the 899 and the 221 drive-through penalty for the 889. That's the second one they'll have here today. This is the incident in question. They go too deep and then they come back and that's not very good. Mostly punished themselves by the looks of it in that incident, but the stewards have clearly felt that that was worth punishing, and actually, unfortunately for them, that incident means they have hit the maximum license point limit for this race. So they have hit, I believe it's 6 license points in this one race, and that has unfortunately earned them a race disqualification. They will take no further part in the first round of the race.
Yeah, so the 899 being pushed back down the pit road into the garage. I'm sure that they will have to have a little bit of a word with the driver, maybe turn it down 1 or 2 notches as sort of a saving grace measure. But back to the racing at hand. The 699, the Eraser. This car, once again, every single time that we've seen him battling, it just looks like it's one of these drivers that when he's got a goal in front of him, he really starts to get on it. Sort of when he has no one around, does good laps, but is not necessarily going for it. And the 699 dives up the inside of the final chicane. Can he get the car stopped? He can. That was a incredibly brave maneuver. You can see him gaining and gaining and gaining. Obviously had a great run coming down the back straight. And at the last moment decides, actually, yes, the 818 gives them the space, manages to get the car through completely sideways.
And no contact either between either of those cars. That's the most impressive thing. As close as you like. And John Eraser doing a fantastic job to work that car up into 7th place. Something might surprise you here, Ryan Wilson. Last season, John Eraser got bumped up to the Pro class in the Lamborghini Super Cup, and he wasn't too happy about it. He said he wasn't up to pace to compete with the rest of the pro drivers. He's 7th at the moment. Yes, he's got a pit stop to do still. He has 18 minutes left to come into the pit lane to do it. But he's doing pretty well out here in the pro class, and he's putting on some good moves.
Yeah, saying that you can't race with the pro class, with moves like that, and that wasn't exactly a one and done, and then he's gonna be battling it. If you look, he's absolutely ditching the 818 behind, and it looks like as well that the 121 Azim, and that is the car just behind in the shot that we can see, the red and black Porsche. They're not really catching either, so he's definitely holding his own. I would say to that man, hold your head up high in pro.
Yeah, definitely so. John Eraser putting on some good moves and definitely showing that he can compete with the pros here. Here is Lobo Zeman, and actually here is Carlos Calatius. And this is actually a driver that won the silver class last season in the Lamborghini Super Cup. Was in the silver class for the GT3 Lamborghinis, and took home the championship as well, the Spaniard. And, well, was one of the drivers that did unfortunately pick up a drive-through penalty for being out of position on race start. So they've been on the back foot from the very start of the race, but not doing too bad of a job right now. They still have to pit, so that does mean they are going to drop back down the order, but they'll be trying to salvage whatever they can from this race at this stage right now, and not doing too bad of a job at the moment. But they've got Oliars in behind them, and the number 15 car will be looking to dispatch the 30 as quick as they can.
The 30 does look a little bit slidey as well. You know, we've done almost we've done over 40 minutes now. We're getting on to the last moments of the race where the fuel load's going to have got lighter and lighter, and you can see in front of us these cars are losing grip more and more. A lot of these teams have not taken tyres, as I suspected they might not, and I think a lot of teams, at least at the front, are probably going to go for the stop and drop strategy of just doing, you know, an into the box and out of the box. But that is a long old time on these tyres with no traction control.
Definitely is. And looking at the pit stop times here that we have, Ryan Wilson, I mean, of the drivers that have done a pit stop, we're looking at Ethan Scott with 57 seconds. We're looking at Vince Van Merveld, who's done 48. Paulo Lima's got 50, maybe a bit of damage repaired in there. Mohamed Malik has a 57-second pit stop. And by the way, that is not stationary time for the folks at home. That is from the pit in line to the pit out line. So that's taking into account the time you're trundling down the pit lane as well. So it's 57 seconds total pit time for Mohamed Malik. And as far as I was aware, the number 8 car hasn't really got involved in any incidents so far this race. So is it possible, Ryan Wilson, that instead of filling up the car as much as they can for the entire race and then just taking, you know, a splash and dash 1 litre, have they maybe gone for a half and half strategy?
I think they might either that, or we've got like a 3/4 and a 25. You know, if you're very close to the front strip, and we have a little bit of a race replay of just a touch there from that was
No, nothing significant though.
No, that's just a small touch to let him know that he's there. I think a lot of the drivers though, who were maybe just a few rows back, might have underfueled the car slightly in the hopes that the long straight at Nurburgring, they were just trying to, you know, gain any kind of straight line advantage and get around them. But we'll see what plays off for them. Obviously, the number 8 being the first on the road of those who have pitted, just got all the people in front of him still.
Nico Kuzma has made his way past Matthew Kingston Lee, so that's Kuzma up into 16th place provisionally for now. And Matthew Kingston Lee demoted down to 17th. Of course, Matthew Kingston Lee started on the back row of the grid, so they're trying to work their way back up as high as they can. Karl Lattiet is in the pit lane, so he's going to be serving his mandatory pit stop and get that out of the way, and we'll see where they come out as well. Victor Nordquist, by the way, has a 15-second penalty, the number 19. That's a lap 14, turn 6 incident involving the 221 and the 19. 15-second penalty for the 19. Takeout on the 221. The position was returned, however, and we will see a replay here of this particular incident, I believe. Actually, oh, there we go. Yeah, that's not ideal for Josef Varga, and obviously they have judged that a 15-second penalty for Victor Nordquist is in order for that particular incident. If the penalties do seem harsh to anyone at home, by the way, they have been made harsher recently, haven't they, Ryan? There was a lot of talk about poor driving standards in the leagues and across the ACC community in general. And, you know, the stewards have reviewed the footage, they've reviewed the data, and they decided that, well, the best way to discourage poor driving standards is to make the penalties more severe. Make it more severe if you do get it wrong and if you do, you know, take someone out. And, you know, it does mean that we have seen some probably what some people would deem to be some harsh penalties. But in the grand scheme of things, if, 5, 6 months down the line, it means we have, far less incidents and far less penalties. It's a win-win for the community, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what we're going for. Obviously, is the long term. It just means that the first few races, when a lot of people are thinking, oh, that wasn't called for or such, it's kind of now what it will be. Doesn't mean though that if the stewards deem it to be an accident, we still have the NFA's racing incidents. They will now just be judged a lot more harshly, especially on lap 1. The historic lap 1 incidents that became a bit of a joking point, wasn't it? They shall be looked upon a lot harsher now, and especially you're driving a Porsche Cup car, you always have to be a little bit cautious in the back of your mind, don't you?
Oh yeah, and I mean, just to put it into perspective, you said there about we still have racing incidents, we still have no further action. I mean, we have seen 4 drive-through penalties come out today, and a couple of 15-second penalties. In and amongst those few penalties, which do seem like a lot, we've also had an SG10 come out for the 81 car. That seems like a lot. In and amongst that, we've had about 30 to 40 no further action, racing incident, resolutions come through. So, the paint scraping, the tapping doors, the little taps on the back that don't really mean anything. The stewards aren't going to penalise them. They're going to let them go. They're going to say, look, it's racing. It happens. No one's lost anything significant out of this. But, if you do turn someone around, or if you do ram into the back of someone, you give them severe damage, yeah, the stewards are going to punish you for that. And that's the important thing to look out at, is that they're more lenient with the smaller incidents now, but they're a lot harsher with the bigger incidents. And I think that's the end goal, isn't it? Is that, we want to let people race, and, if we can kind of filter out the smaller incidents and put those more down to racing incident or no further action when necessary, that kind of means the stewards can focus their efforts a lot more on the bigger incidents that, realistically do need punishing if drivers need bringing back in line.
And they generally, sometimes need, 2, 3, 4 levels of approval before we actually give someone that penalty. So it's not just one person deciding it. I've sat in a couple of times on some stewarding when I've not been in the comms box, and yeah, I can tell you it's a lot more complicated than some people let on. So
team of 8 today. Eight people.
I shall already tip my hat towards them. And looking back on our monitors as well, that was a scary couple of corners with the 29 and the 18. Briefly off the road, it looked like the 29. That car, I think, is now really starting to lose grip. The rear end of the 29 does not look as planted as, say, the 18 of Paulo Lima. But I've seen Paulo Lima before in the Porsche in the GT4 Cup, and I know that driver, they were phenomenal on keeping the tyres in check. There must have been part of their driving style. They were always great at tyre saving, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing play out now. See, here's the 29. They're all over the place, still trying to get the power down in that Porsche. They're trying to, get anything down. The 18, they're biding their time. I think they're waiting for the best opportunity possible.
Yeah, and we have seen from Vince van Mervelde, haven't we, that they've been putting out some good moves on cars in the field so far today. Ooh, getting very out of shape there, and they have been putting on some good moves. They have been pushing really hard throughout the entirety of the race, and like you said, with less than 10 minutes to go, the tires on that car look pretty shot, and for Paulo Lima, it does look like a matter of time until the 29 eventually does get sideways enough that the 18 can take advantage of it, and we'll keep an eye on this battle as the 29 does get a bit squirmy out in the final corner. And that's one of the problems, isn't it, Ryan Mawson, when you have worn tyres like Merville probably has right now, and then adding into that you have no traction control, you have to go down into first gear for that hairpin right down at the first corner, and you feel like the whole world's against you.
And you've got a driver right behind you who that if you have too much of a big moment or you are too slow on the throttle, you will lose that position. And every position and any points you can get at the start of the season, no matter how small they are, will help. How many times have we seen where people have managed to run away quite quickly in the opening phases by just amassing so many points? It gets harder and harder at the end of the season to catch them. But that 29, yeah, that car is really, really snappy now. Can they hold on to it for the next 8 minutes or so? If they do, that is one hell of a driver behind the wheel.
Yeah, so say it's going to be pretty difficult, isn't it? But we'll keep a close eye on it. Ooh, going very wide as well, and it just seems like Paulo Lima, from what we can see here on the onboard, just seems so much more comfortable in the car. I mean, I don't think these cars are comfortable at any point when you're driving them, but compared to Vince van Mervelde at the moment, Paulo Lima definitely looks like the more comfortable of the two. We have just 8 minutes left and 6 minutes and 30 seconds left of the pit window here in the first race of the season. It's all coming to a close. Mikael Sundström has come in to serve his mandatory pit stop. And looking at where he has come out, he's come out ahead of Mamad Malik. So Mamad Malik was ahead of Mikael Sundström when the pit stops first happened. And it looks like the overcut has worked for the 899. So Mikael Sundström staying out in that clean air has come good for him. And he has managed to jump the number 8 in the pit stops. And Mikael Sundström will be very, very happy about that.
It would not have surprised me that as the 899 was actually maybe biding their time lightly, and as soon as the 8 has dipped in, the 899 has really gone for a few push laps, once they've got it into the clean air. Mikael Sundström is a driver who, he's been around enough. He knows how to play his cards right. So, great strategy call from them, and that's brought them way up the grid.
Definitely has, and Mikael will be looking about 4th place, I believe, once all the pit stops filter out. It kind of depends on where Andy Boardman and Martin Lawrence will be after their pit stops. I believe Andy Boardman will still be in 3rd place, but I suppose it does depend on what happens in the next 5 minutes. We'll keep an eye on it. As Jordan Daly works his way around, he's in 17th place at this point, recovering from when he was turned around earlier on in the race, and 17th place at the moment. Not too bad for Jordan Daly. Did very well in the Lambo Super Cup in the Pro Class, and obviously looking to build on that here. Very different car, the Porsche Cup, to the Lamborghini GT3. Both on the more difficult end of cars to drive, and Jordan Daly definitely fancying a challenge. Here is Miska Suominen, by the way. It was Ethan Scott for company at this point in time, and Miska Suominen is about to come into the pit lane now. I'm interested to see where Miska Suominen comes out. They started right at the back of the grid. They were last in qualifying, but they've kept themselves out of trouble, and now they swerve a bit coming into the pit lane. We'll have to see where they will be when they come out of the pit lane, and how many places overall they have gained so far this race, because they started 28th. I mean, if they're into the top 20, I would say that's a job well done on, keeping yourself out of trouble and just making the strategy work.
Absolutely, and I mean, we can just see passing our screen now as well. That's the 404 of Bart Matcher, where they were also pretty much right down the back of the grid because of that the early race spin and the damage that car had picked up. So they've done well to get all the way back here. All the people who have managed to actually leapfrog them as Miska Suominen comes out. That's our leader actually. There goes Wolf Matuszka, so that will have been another lap down for them. But I think, have they held on in front of Paulo Lima? I'm trying to look where the 18 is.
The 18, by the looks of it, is ahead. Yes, I think they're going to be out behind the likes of Bart Matcher, so I think they'll tickle down into 19th place for Miska Suominen. So about the 20th place mark where I did think they would be, and what would be, a good performance for them. So there you go, it's confirmed now, updated on the leaderboard. Miska Suominen 19th place. Carlos Calatiad is a fair way back, and with the amount of time left in the race, Suominen shouldn't lose that 19th place that they have gained. So that is a good performance from a driver that you know, had a lot going against them after qualifying, and you know, it feels awful to be right at the back, you know, and to come out here and make a good performance of it, stay out of trouble, and gain a good few places to bring yourself back up into the midfield and earn yourself some decent points. You can be happy with that performance.
Well, it's 9 places that they have managed to, you know, gain. And it's not necessarily like the driver that, you know, we've been watching, that they've had, you know, epic battles here and there and have been throwing it up the inside and doing crazy sidewaysness at the chicane. Like we've seen some of these drivers, they've just been lapping. You know, they've kept the nose clean, they've done the laps, done it clean, and they've managed to get all the way up there in the 35, going around with 2 wide with the 81. Gaspar, once again, really looking like he might have the pace over the 35, but you do have to say that the 35 definitely knows how to drive that Porsche defensively.
And Lubomir Zeman has a stop-go 30, and if my eyes do not deceive me, that is for speeding in pit lane. That does not look like something that has been handed out from the steward. So I'm looking through the stewarding report at this point in time, and I see absolutely nothing in here to suggest that there is a stop-go 30. I believe the stewards are completely caught up on all the incidents now in the race, which is good news for them because we're not too far from the end. But I believe Lubomir Zeman has done that through speeding in pit lane, and right towards the end of the race, Ryan Mawson, it's probably one of the worst things that can happen to you.
Oh yeah, the Nurburgring, it does have a bit of a strange pit entry. It is, you know, quite a late line, but there is a secondary line. So a lot of people will leave a brake too early, but sometimes drivers will, you know, they'll fly past the mark and then realize. I think that's probably what's happened to Zeman. Looking back on the quick race replay as well, that is what happened. They've flown past the second mark and they've not realized it.
It's unfortunate for Lubomir Zeman, but they'll have to serve that stop-go penalty before the end of the race, or it will be added on to their end race time. Meanwhile, we look back to Gegely Gaspar in 25th place, chasing down Stefan van Kampen at this point in the 35 car, who's carrying a very Union Jack-like livery on the Porsche car. Feels a bit out of place, doesn't it, Ryan Wilson, on a German car to see a Union Jack, but to each their own and make it work as they can. We can also see Josef Varga just in the background there as well, hoping to see if they can capitalise on any positions late here. All the points in the championship do matter as the pit window has closed. Everyone has got their pit stops done within the window, well, everyone that is still racing at least, and that does mean that Wolf Matuszka is leading us around, and he should be leading us onto the final lap of the race fairly soon. And well, have a look at this, Ryan Mawson, because I believe the likes of Martin Lawrence has lost a lot of time in the pit lane. He's down into 7th place according to the standings. That's put Boardman up to 2nd and Sundstrom onto the podium.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that the 69 has just managed to basically come out of nowhere for the very last moment of the races. They've got themselves to 2nd. And just look at the pit deltas now to see where they lost all the time. 1 minute 15 for Martin Lawrence. I mean, unless they forgot to untick the tyres, possibly.
That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, changing tyres about 2 minutes to go of the race would be a very strange decision. And I mean, I can only assume it is that. I mean, we've seen drivers do that before. Martin Grady in the Friday Championship at Suzuka did that exact thing. He didn't mean to change tyres, but he did. Accidentally, just forgot to turn it off. And as a result of that, he did lose himself some time. And I mean, that will frustrate Martin Lawrence even more than losing out on the pole position points, won't it? That he has essentially now thrown away a podium through just forgetting to unclick a checkbox in the MFD when coming into the pit lane. And it's not the way you want to see someone lose a podium, but it looks like it's the way it's happened for Martin Lawrence here today, and it will be to the benefit of Andy Boardman and Mikhail Sundstrom, who will both make their way onto the podium. And of course, Nico Kumpu, Mohamed Malik and Smeets have also benefited from that as well. They've all gained a position, and Martin Lawrence looks like he'll have to settle for 7th.
And coming down now. Obviously, our leader will swoop round and take the checkered, but it's a last lap battle between that lot. You've got Bart Matcher, Carlson, and Jordan Daly. You know, that is going to be quite the crowded section of racetrack. But what can you say for this man, for the 25, the pink performance, Wolf Matuszka? I did think that he might have a bit of something in the Porsche, and well, a 25-second gap at the race end. Didn't really talk much about him, but that necessarily means that you know, you haven't had an overly dramatic race, as Wolf Matuszka takes the checkered flag, comes from pole light to flag win.
And Wolf Matuszka will claim the first win of the season, as George Smith would often use to describe drivers in the Porsche Cup in past. Disgustingly good from Wolf Matuszka, and it was a fantastic performance from the very start, wasn't it? Here is John Aracer in the 699, defending from the likes of Van Mervelde, and it looks like Paulo Lima has made some form of mistake, and oh, there's a bit of contact there. Bart Matcher just running into the back of Carlson slightly, and now having to back off. Jordan Daly still under pressure, of course. This was the battle we were watching earlier. Jordan Daly pulling out. He doesn't want to give Carlson the slipstream on the back straight up towards the chicane. This is one of the final battles on the circuit for one of the final few positions that we have around here. And Jordan Daly competing for a 14th place. It will be a good recovery for him. Tucks to the inside line. Bart Matcher as well, tucking to the inside line. But unless he can get an amazing exit, that's how it's going to finish. Jordan Daly 14th, Carlson 15th, and Bart Matcher 16th. A fantastic end to their races and a decent haul of points for them as well. Confirmation that it was Andy Boardman and Mikael Sundstrom that rounded out your podium. Kumpu, Malik, Smeets, Lawrence, Scott, Eraser, and Van Mervelde round out your top 10 finishers. And we have 27 cars finishing the race and scoring points here today in the first round of the season.
And the 69, Andy Boardman, obviously quite happy with his result there. It's finally has come good with him. You know, what a once again another race where just kept it clean, kept it consistent, had quite a few you know, good moves, and other than that, what more can you see? It's the 899. Mikael Sundstrom trying his hand at a bit of drifting. I think you might need to slightly tweak the setup there, lads, to go drifting.
Well, whilst Mikael Sundstrom will return to the chalkboard to work on his post-race drifting skills, Wolf Matuszka will make his way back to the pit lane celebratory in-lap for the 25, and on home turf deserves it as well. The home fans, the home German contingent out in the crowd will be absolutely loving it, because it's not only a German car, and it has to be a German car that technically wins at the German race because it's just a Porsche Cup Series, but it is a German driver that brings it home as well. And fantastic for Wolf Matuszka to claim the first win of the season. 5 more rounds to go. We'll be at Imola next week, next Monday, same time, for another 60 minutes of racing. And Imola is going to be very, very interesting indeed. Very different prospect to what we have out here at the Nurburgring, and that will excite for sure. If you're looking forward to any more racing, if you liked what you saw tonight, you want to maybe catch up on some more stuff that's going on, well, we have the Thursday Championship, the GT4 Endurance Championship, will be opening its, well, not opening its account, it'll be continuing its account at the second round of the season at Alton Park on November the 11th. Go tune into that. The first race was absolutely fantastic. They had a change of weather at Silverstone in the very first round, an unexpected change of weather as well, and that caught a lot of cars out. And it's a very, very interesting race. Jesse Lee and Tim Peck covering that season. Then for the Friday GT3 Championship, it will be Jesse Lee back again, and Ryan Mawson, you should be covering that one as well. They'll be going out to, well, the very place we're at right now. Ryan Mawson won't be going anywhere. He's going to be staying here in Germany and chilling out at the Nurburgring up until Friday, where we will have the continuation of Season 3 of the GT3 World Championship. The Split 1, which was a 1-2 finish for Yaz Heat, we'll have to see if the likes of George Boothby and Joseph Honzik can do that again. And the Night Owl Championship Season 7 kicks off this weekend on November the 13th at Misano as well. I believe it's going to be a night race for that one as well. And an unknown calendar going into that season for the Night Owl Championship. They've only been telling people what the first round of the season is and then announcing the rest of the calendar once all the entries are locked in. So a lot of the drivers, they're going into Misano, but they have no idea what the rest of the season holds. And that always offers some interest, and it will be Jesse Lee and Ryan Mawson covering that one for you as well late on Saturday evening. And that will be race starting around 11 o'clock UK time. So definitely tune into that if you're a night owl on the weekend and you fancy yourself some racing. We will, of course, be back next week for the Monday Championship at Imola for the Porsche Cup Season 3. Big thank you to everyone who has tuned in today. It's been a fantastic race. We hope you've all enjoyed it at home. And, of course, big thank you to our partners we mentioned earlier, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. You can, of course, find our discount code for Driver 61 down in the link in the description. And of course, the Fanatec affiliate link as well. Can also use that to support RCI at no further cost. Big thank you to the stewards who have done a fantastic job here today. They do not disappoint, and they definitely have a pretty hard job. So big thanks to them. Big thanks to Ryan Mawson for coming along for the first round of the season. And we will, I'll hope to commentate with you again, soon in the future, Ryan. But thank you very much for coming along, and I hope you enjoyed it up here in the commentary box today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm sure I'll stick around for the Friday Champ. I'm sure that Adenau, I think that has some good pubs in it. I think if I remember, I'll go down there and see what they've got on offer.
Well, thank you very much, and we will see what happens next week out at Imola. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to see you on Thursday for the GT4 Endurance Championship.